Night. The rain hasn't stopped for hours. It turns the asphalt into a mirror, reflecting the cold glow of street lamps. Somewhere in the distance, a freight train groans across an iron bridge, the sound mixing with the hollow echo of a ship's horn from the Rhine. The camera glides slowly across a deserted parking lot near the river. Water drips from a rusted fence. A beat-up sedan sits crooked near the metal railing. The driver's door hangs open like a broken limb. Inside, a dark, sticky bloodstain spreads across the driver's seat. The smell of iron and wet upholstery fills the air. On the floor, shards of a smashed cell phone glint like tiny knives. Police arrive. Blue lights flash against the slick pavement. Forensics tape off the scene, their floodlights turning night into harsh white daylight. Divers zip up wetsuits, their breath forming clouds in the cold air before they slide into the black water, their flashlights cutting thin tunnels through the murk. Düsseldorf, September 13, 1994. The car of 37-year-old Boris C was found abandoned by the Rhine. The key still in the ignition. Blood on the seat. But no body. No footprints leading away. No witnesses. Newspaper headlines scream, mysterious disappearance of Croatian worker. Car found with blood, body missing. This was the beginning of one of Germany's most haunting missing person cases, a case without a body, without a suspect, and without an ending. Before he became a headline, Boris C was an ordinary man. A construction worker, a husband, a father of two. Born in Croatia, he had moved to Germany during the late 80s, looking for work. Friends remember him as reserved, polite, a man who kept his head down. He was never the loud one, a neighbor later said. But in the last months before he vanished, he changed. Always smoking on the balcony, staring down the street as if waiting for someone, or hiding from someone. Inside his small apartment, bills piled on the kitchen table. Rent, utilities, reminders from the bank. A worn notebook lay open, pages filled with lists, I/O, due dates, numbers circled in red. Boris had debts, but no one knew how deep they went. Some said he was behind on rent, others whispered about gambling. Whatever the truth, the pressure was building. And in the summer of 1994, it finally broke the surface. September 13th was an ordinary Tuesday until it wasn't. Boris left work as usual, but instead of going home, he drove toward the river. Rain started to fall, turning the city into a glittering maze of reflections. Witnesses later recalled seeing a man matching his description near the car that night. He looked tense. Kept looking over his shoulder. At some point, the car was parked in the riverside lot. The engine was cold when police found it. The driver's door left unlocked. Inside, a smear of blood on the seat and nothing else. Divers searched until dawn. Dogs combed the muddy riverbank. There were no drag marks, no signs of a struggle, no witnesses who saw a fight or heard a cry for help. It was as if Boris had simply stepped out of existence. Forensics swabbed the blood and confirmed it was Boris's. It wasn't a lot, enough for a minor injury, not a fatal one. There were no other fingerprints inside the car. No weapon. No sign of forced entry. The scene felt staged, one investigator later admitted. Like it was built to tell a story. Police logged every fragment of glass, every footprint in the mud. But nothing connected to another person. With no body, there was no homicide case, just a missing person report. And a gnawing question, had Boris been killed, or had he done this to himself? Detectives built three main theories. Theory 1, gambling debts. Boris had been seen in smoky bars, playing cards late into the night. Maybe he owed the wrong people. Theory 2, loan sharks. Some friends said he had complained of threats, strange phone calls at night, maybe even intimidation near his home. Theory 3, trouble on the job. The early 90s were full of off-the-books work and cash deals. Fights over unpaid wages were common, sometimes violent. But there was no hard evidence. Each theory was a possibility. And each pointed in a different direction. In the weeks before his disappearance, Boris's behavior grew erratic. Friends recall late-night phone calls, no number showing. Short, threatening messages. He stopped talking mid-sentence sometimes, like he was somewhere else in his head, said a coworker. He began pulling the blinds shut, unplugging the intercom, even moving a chair against the door at night. On the kitchen table, an open ledger filled with red numbers. No official report of threats was ever filed. But his behavior, isolation, paranoia, sleepless nights, matched what investigators call dead fear. When someone threatens your kids, a detective explained, you stop thinking straight. People make desperate choices. There wasn't much blood, but just enough to make everyone uneasy. Investigators sprayed luminol inside the car, the liquid glowing blue under UV light like ghostly handwriting. Drops on the seat, a smear on the door handle, one faint streak on the steering wheel. It's consistent with a shallow cut, the forensic tech said. Enough to scare someone. Not enough to kill. They searched every inch, under the seats, inside the glove compartment, in the trunk. The spare tire was still there. No sign of struggle, no dragged body, no other footprints in the mud. At the station, detectives pinned photos of the car on a corkboard, red strings connecting angles, stains, tire marks. If this was a murder, one detective said, where is the fight? Where is the killer's footprint? Another shook his head. Maybe this is exactly what he wanted us to think. Maybe this is his stage, his play. The room fell silent. The sound of the rain tapping on the window was the only reply. For Boris's family, the days turned into a slow-motion nightmare. His wife sat by the phone every night, staring at the silent receiver. I kept thinking, maybe he's in a hospital, maybe he lost his memory, maybe he'll call. His children waited at the window when school ended, looking for the familiar figure with his work bag. They asked me, Mama, is Daddy hiding from us? And I didn't know what to say, she recalled later. Neighbors brought soup, lit candles in the hallway, left notes on the door. Everyone whispered, but nobody used the word dead. Weeks later, his wife started hearing things, boots in the stairwell, a key in the lock only to open the door and find empty halls and dripping rain. When a judge declared Boris legally dead 3 years later, she sat frozen in the courtroom. I signed the papers, she said, but I still felt like a wife. Like he might walk through the door tomorrow. If Boris had faked his death, how had he done it? Detectives reconstructed his possible escape step by step. A map of Europe covered the wall. He could have taken a late train toward Cologne, switched to a bus for Brussels. From there, trains ran to Paris every hour. But to vanish completely, he'd need money, a new identity, a place to hide. A detective wrote 3 words on the board, help from someone. You can't do this alone, he said. Not this cleanly. Somebody helped him or sheltered him. The case exploded in the media. Reporters stood outside the family's building day and night, shoving microphones at crying children, asking if they thought their father was dead. Tabloids printed grainy photos of the riverbank, some even doctored to show a shadowy figure walking away. Talk shows debated, was he a victim of organized crime? Did he owe money to the wrong people? Or did he run away to start a new life? One TV show even hired an actor to play Boris, filming a reenactment of him walking toward the river and vanishing into the dark. For the family, each broadcast was torture. They turned him into a TV ghost, his wife said. But he was my husband, the father of my children. Not a story. The gambling theory became the focus again when police raided an illegal poker den a few blocks from Boris's workplace. Witnesses remembered seeing him there, quiet, smoking, eyes locked on the cards. He usually lost. One night he slammed his fist on the table and walked out, the dealer said. Didn't come back. Detectives tried to find proof of debts, bank withdrawals, IOUs, but nothing big enough to justify murder. Still, small debts can be dangerous. One gambler had disappeared months earlier. His body was later found in a canal. The second theory was even darker: loan sharks. Boris had told a friend that someone kept calling him, leaving messages that ended with silence. Sometimes the phone would ring at 2 in the morning, and when he picked up, there was nothing, just breathing. Neighbors reported a dark car parked outside the building for hours, lights off. A man leaning against a lamppost, smoking, staring at Boris's window until dawn. Once, a neighbor heard loud voices in the stairwell, Boris arguing with someone in hushed tones, ending with a slammed door. "You don't need to hurt someone," a criminologist said. "You let them imagine what will happen. Fear does the work for you. It corrodes from the inside." Boris started avoiding friends, stopped attending weekend gatherings. His wife said he would jump at sudden noises, check the locks twice before bed. But police never found names, recordings, or written threats, just a man slowly folding into himself under invisible pressure. On a rainy Sunday, his daughter found him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a blank page. "What are you writing, Tata?" she asked. He covered the paper with his hand. "A list," he said. "Of what?" "Of what I can't forget." He never finished that list. Then there was the job theory. Cash work meant no contracts, no legal protection. If you were cheated, there was no HR department, no union rep to call, just your fists, or the street. One co-worker recalled a shouting match on site. He said someone was stealing his hours, that he'd report them. His hands were shaking. He didn't look angry, he looked desperate. Another remembered Boris packing up early one day, muttering that someone is going to pay. But no formal complaint was ever filed, no witness willing to go on record. Investigators wondered if Boris had gotten into a fight that no one wanted to talk about, maybe with the wrong people. Or maybe it was just another ghost lead. The detective in charge wrote a single line in his notebook: asterisk, fear has many faces. Which one did he see? Asterisk. Years turned into decades. The case was opened, closed, reopened. Every new detective would sit at the desk, open the old folders, see the black and white photos of the car by the river. Blood evidence was tested with new technology, matched against databases of unidentified bodies. Nothing. A younger detective once stayed overnight, staring at the evidence board. "It's like he walked out of the frame," he said. "Like the world swallowed him." For the family, hope faded in layers. Birthdays passed with empty chairs. The children grew up, finished school, moved away, but still kept one eye on the door. His son avoided the river. His daughter stopped answering questions at school. They learned to live with a question mark where a father should be. "Some cases never leave you," a senior officer said. "You put the file back on the shelf, but it stares back at you every time you walk by." In quiet moments, the detective would take Boris's photo from the drawer and ask the empty office, "Where did you go?" Then came the break. A clerk digitizing old records spotted a man in France with a near match, same birth date, similar physical features. Detectives ran the name through every system they had. The man lived a quiet life, rented house, odd jobs, no criminal record, taxes paid in cash equivalents where possible. They sent a surveillance team. For days, they watched from an unmarked car. He left at the same time every morning, went to the same bakery, nodded to the same grocer, came home before dark. Binoculars confirmed what their hearts already knew: it was Boris. They planned the knot carefully. No uniforms, no spectacle. A simple doorbell on a quiet afternoon. "When you open that door after 30 years, one detective said, you're not just meeting a man. You're meeting 3 decades of questions." The night before the visit, the team sat in a motel room, silent. Someone finally said, "What if he runs?" Another answered, "He's been running all his life." Debate raged for weeks. Police officers felt betrayed. "We spent thousands of hours, taxpayers' money, chasing a ghost," one said. "We could have followed living cases." His family felt torn, a relief that he was alive, rage that he left them to grieve a living man. His wife told a friend, "I dreamed of him for years. Now I don't know whether to forgive the dream or the man." Psychologists explain survival mode. When a person believes death is coming for him or his children, morality becomes a luxury. He doesn't think about next year, only tonight. Priests preached forgiveness in Sunday sermons: "Judge, but remember the fear you have never felt." Radio stations opened hotlines where callers shouted, cried, argued. One woman said, "I would have done the same." You don't wait for evil to knock. Another spat, "He abandoned them." That's not protection, that's betrayal. A retired detective, voice thick, said on air, "I'm angry. And I'm relieved. And I'm tired." The host went quiet. For a moment, the whole city listened to the sound of someone letting go. The news hit like thunder. Headlines screamed, "Back from the dead." TV vans raced to the village. Neighbors stood in doorways, stunned. Some waved reporters away, others leaned in, hungry for the story. Some called him a coward, a man who let his wife cry over a grave that wasn't real. Others called him a survivor, even a folk hero. "He did what he had to do," one man said on live TV. "You don't know fear until someone threatens your children." Talk shows filled with arguments. Was Boris selfish? Brave? Both? Was he responsible for the years of police work, or were the threats the true culprits? A legal expert told reporters, "He lied to police, faked a crime scene, but legally, there may be no punishment left to give." Time ran out. The law is silent now. Editorials asked whether the system failed him before he failed his family. Panelists shouted. Ratings climbed. Debate raged for weeks. Police officers felt betrayed. "We spent thousands of hours, taxpayers' money, chasing a ghost," one said. "We could have followed living cases." His family felt torn, a relief that he was alive, rage that he left them to grieve a living man. His wife told a friend, "I dreamed of him for years. Now I don't know whether to forgive the dream or the man." Psychologists explain survival mode. When a person believes death is coming for him or his children, morality becomes a luxury. He doesn't think about next year, only tonight. Priests preached forgiveness in Sunday sermons: "Judge, but remember the fear you have never felt." Radio stations opened hotlines where callers shouted, cried, argued. One woman said, "I would have done the same." You don't wait for evil to knock. Another spat, "He abandoned them." That's not protection, that's betrayal. A retired detective, voice thick, said on air, "I'm angry. And I'm relieved. And I'm tired." The host went quiet. For a moment, the whole city listened to the sound of someone letting go. Today, Boris tends a small garden behind a wall of ivy. He walks to the market early, buys bread, nods politely to the shopkeeper. He is home before sunset. He fixes things that break. He grows tomatoes too many for one man to eat. There are no interviews, no memoirs, no apologies. Only the slow ritual of ordinary days, perhaps the life he always wanted, or the life fear left him. Detectives closed the file. But for those who searched for him, and those who cried for him, the story will never truly end. One retired officer keeps Boris's case photo on his desk. It's a reminder, he says, that sometimes the truth is stranger than anything we can imagine. And sometimes the truth hurts more. So here's the question. If someone called you and said they know where your children sleep, what would you do? Would you go to the police and hope they can protect you? Would you fight back and risk everything? Or would you vanish, leave your old life behind, build a new one, and carry the weight of guilt forever? This is not a story about heroes and villains. It's about fear, choices, and the cost of survival. The file is closed, but the mystery lives on. Inspired by true events.